Deion, the human video, the only player to travel with his own spotlight. A star of the first magnitude at Florida State, twice an All-American, Sanders went primetime in Atlanta, selling himself as a man for 2 seasons and renaming the Georgia Dome the house that Deion built. Since then, he has rarely strayed from the headlines, displaying a love of 2 sports exceeded by a towering love for himself.
Deion Sanders came along at the perfect time in history for both he and for his sports. He was, for a time, the greatest force in the NFL.
He's a superstar, don't get me wrong. And like most superstars, he's very opinionated.
I got one thing to say, this is my house.
It's like psychedelic, you know, that's the images that you conjure up. A lot of color, a lot of panache, a lot of shine and glare, gold, glitz, and glitter.
Deion Sanders almost brings the attention that a rock star would bring to sports. It's almost as if Elvis had become a football player.
Anytime you hear prime time, that means you're on the hot seat, baby. You got to produce. You got center stage to do what you do best. And of course, that's Deion.
Deion's flamboyance made the opposition want to beat him too badly and maybe get out of what they were trying to do a little bit. Let's go at him one more time. Oh, boy, there's the interception for a touchdown. We'll kick it to him. What difference does it make? What, is he going to run to 11, guy? Yeah, he just did, didn't he? Oops, 80-yard punt return.
He is addicted to adrenaline. He's addicted to the glamour, to all the charisma that he creates. And he knows that in order to get that addiction satisfied, he's got to do something great.
I never wanted to be mediocre at anything. I wanted to be the absolute best.
If you're talking about Deion Sanders, the unique thing about him is to be able to reach the level that he has in 2 sports, in baseball and in football, is very unique.
With a 3-2 pitch. Drilled to center field. Bo Jackson going over, leaps and can't get it. It goes all the way to the fence. Deion Sanders blazing around second. Tapper goes over to get the ball, plays it in there, waving him home. The throw to the plate gets on by. Sanders flies over, and now he is safe at home. There's a pile of bodies at the plate.
From the time he first came up with the Yankees and then the Braves to when he even played for the Giants, he was a lot better baseball player. He improved. Here's a guy that played on natural ability, and you look at the statistics he put up, and they were remarkable.
While earning All-Pro honors in football for 8 years, Sanders was able to moonlight for nearly a decade in the majors. But talent doesn't explain all of Deion.
Everybody knows Deion's very gifted athletically. Not too many people know that he's very gifted upstairs as well, as far as being able to think on the run or on the fly or in situations and making quick decisions here and there.
There are people who can pull off the great athletic accomplishments, but to pull it off in a show business way where he tells you he's going to do it, there are very few that can do that.
He created such an advantage for himself because he talked the talk and walked it. When you're around a guy like that, it can be a little intimidating.
His personality is so overbearing that he's an athlete, I think, who has suffered from the familiarity that American people have with him.
Hey, you think you're busy? 2 words, Deion Sanders. He's scoring touchdowns, he's hitting triples, he's getting his hair done. He's wearing 7,000 pounds worth of clothing. He's hanging with his posse. He's out of control.
With all the flash and all the jewelry and all of the colorful language and what have you, I think this was a guy that was playing a role to a certain extent, and then he started believing that role.
Yes, me, this Deion kid isn't showing up. He's just having fun.
There's no mistake about it. Primetime and Deion are totally separate, but yes, primetime does cause Deion some heartache.
He started handling himself, just promoting himself, you know. And that became hard to swallow for a lot of people, but it also put pressure on him. So people started wanting things, and they didn't care about Deion the person. even though he created this monster,
As primetime soared ever higher into the stratosphere, it seemed he couldn't get enough of the benefits accorded to his fame.
Let's face it, when you're one of the greatest players in football, one of the most recognizable players in all of sports, and you have all the money, it's not difficult to understand why there was a breakdown in his marriage.
Deion did open up a dance club and did wear gold jewelry and did drive fast cars, and by his own admission, did commit adultery on numerous occasions.
Deion was going through his divorce, and he wasn't himself. He wasn't prime time. His mind wasn't on the game, and he wasn't a happy person. All the money and all the power and everything he had in life, he wasn't a happy person.
I couldn't purchase it. I couldn't seduce it. $4,000 or $5,000 beds, and I wouldn't get no sleep. $2,000 suits, and I couldn't cover it up. 10 cars in the driveway, and I wasn't going nowhere.
Deion's ride on the wild side ended against Carolina in January of 1997. With Michael Irvin already knocked out of the game, the Cowboys' hopes died altogether when Sanders fell to earth.
It wasn't even a hard fall, I mean, but the way I fell, I just fell on the corner of my face, and I remember getting up saying, like, man, help me to show me my sideline. Which sideline am I on?
Deion winds up going off. He's woozy, carried off sort of in a body bag.
I couldn't see nothing, and then I started feeling real bad, and my head was about to blow up. And I remember they taking me in, and next thing you know, they're cutting my uniform off me.
There wasn't anything anybody liked better than to see Deion Sanders hurt or humiliated.
It got worse. After the Panther game, Sanders returned to Cincinnati to find that his wife, Carolyn, had left with their 2 children. 7 weeks later, his stepfather died. And just days after that, he received divorce papers. With his life in shambles, Deion searched for a way out.
When Deion was in Cincinnati, he had a lot of things going on, and a lot of things taking him away from the game of baseball.
I wanted to see my baby so bad, man. You know, my kids was like my life support system. They were the only thing keeping me alive.
I remember riding home with Deion, you know, and just talking. You know, it started with baseball, but it wouldn't end with baseball. You know, and those were conversations that stayed between he and I. But, you know, I do know that it was a tough time for him.
He wasn't really in control of his happiness at that time. And someone else had control over that, and he couldn't fix it.
He's like, I want to see my kids. Okay, well, let's call Carol. Let's call Carol and say, give me see your kids. And he said, well, I'll call. And she said, she's going to bring them. She never did show up. And he was kind of disappointed. He was hot, you know, he was hurt.
Well, his kids are his pride and joy. And he just bases his world around football, his kids, just family. And with his ex-wife, using him as a tool, it kind of hurt him.
Somebody called and said, you know, Deion got some things going on. You know, can you talk to him?
I had already rode that night to scope out the place where I would commit suicide. And it got to the point where I said, I'm going to do this. I got a call from Eugene. He said, we found Deion. So I'm like, okay, where is he? I'm on my way. And when we found him, he was off on the cliff off the interstate.
In his autobiography, Sanders puts the suicide attempt during the spring of 1997 while he was with the Reds. He describes driving his car off a cliff, crashing some 40 feet below, and walking away unscathed.
One of the great mysteries of Deion Sanders is whether or not this suicide attempt that he says that he was involved in was to the extent that he said it was.
It's hard for people to imagine that a guy who loved himself as much as Deion loves himself would ever try to do away with himself.
Deion needs to be loved. And I know at that time he felt, you know, he wasn't loved.
He was having normal people's problems, but never anybody there to ask, hey, Deion, are you all right? How do you feel today?
There's so much there, and not to say that he's making things up, but you just can't really tell how much of it is truth and how much of it is fiction.
When he had a book to sell, Deion was only too willing to come forward and let everybody know about the trauma he had been through and the attempt he had made on his life.
No one really knew. No one really knew. I don't even think my teammates, to this day that I sit on the side of the bench, I don't even think they knew.
After the incident, I picked him up from the hospital and went back home. And I just told him, I said, you got to tell me why I shouldn't go into court right now and get a 90-hour commitment.
because that's what I'm going to do unless you give me a good reason why I shouldn't.
No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. And I remember he was dead serious.
Now, I'm okay, dog. I said, well, okay people don't drive their car off a cliff.
Born in 1967, Deion Sanders grew up in a poor section of Fort Myers, Florida. His father, known as Daddy Buck, abandoned the family when Deion was 6. His mother remarried a few years later.
My father used drugs. He was addicted to drugs, and my stepfather, Will, used alcohol.
A lot of other people, would carry on the generational curse, so to speak, by saying, well, my father was an alcoholic, so I'm an alcoholic, and that's just passed down generation through generation. But with him, he put a stop to that.
Living without a dad, basically had a stepdad, and being separated from his real dad, his mom was a crucial factor in his life.
The most difficult thing about raising Deion was raising him alone.
She worked her butt off for me. I mean, she was worst dressed so I could win best dressed at school, and she sacrificed a lot just to see me prosper.
Connie was the one that really pushed Deion toward sports. She sacrificed by working 2 and 3 jobs to make sure Deion had what he needed.
At the age of 8, Sanders found his athletic calling on the football field under the guidance of his coach, Dave Capel.
Coach Capel really embraced me, and he was like a father figure also, who looked out for me.
He was just a little skinny little boy, and he weighed about 85 pounds, and he had little skinny little legs, and he looked like a deer. He had deer legs, but he could run like a deer.
It was like watching Pac-Man at full speed. Here's little Deion going around all over the place. It wasn't like running to the end zone. He would just run around trying to see how many guys would miss him, like eating up dots the whole time.
When I played with kids my age, it was like stealing, man. And everybody in the neighborhood used to get mad, like, he's playing with the little boys, he's playing with the little... Like, man, these kids are my age, man. I'm just doing my thing.
He lived right across the street from a cemetery, and to the right side was another cemetery. I think that's where he probably got some of his fast moves from when he was younger.
I learned how to run coming through those graveyards. I know that. We would catch a car light coming down the street, and the light of that car was our light. And we would run and run and run as fast as we could.
As a kid, he wasn't that outgoing.
When Deion was here, he was just like any other kid in the hallway that played around. Didn't even play much. He was quiet and serious.
The only way he would talk if you talked to him. But when I saw him put a uniform on and he stepped on the football field, he was a whole different child.
So, too, was Sanders elevated by his prowess on the hardwood.
Watching him play basketball was probably the most amazing thing in high school. When he played for North Fort Myers, he was the guy everybody came to watch.
One night, Deion was the center of undesirable attention at the North Fort Myers High gym.
This girl really said some harsh things to me and one of my teammates. Called us that famous N-word, which no black man likes to hear. I was happening to holding the football at the time, so I threw a perfect spot. And hit her right in her head.
As a result, word got out that Deion had hit this white girl. We had a basketball game that night, and I noticed a crowd starting to gather just before halftime that I'd never seen before.
And I remember going down the court like, Lord, we got a nice house in here tonight. Well, these ain't the normal fans here tonight. There must be a rodeo or something going on after the game.
We told the coaches that something was going on, and by now they'd picked up the rumor that they were upset because Deion had hit this girl, and they were going to come take care of it. We thought Deion would be, Deion. He'd just play the game. That'd be the end of it. He got loose on a breakaway and went down and just slammed a dunk down you wouldn't believe. And instead of going back down the court, he runs over and gives a little, one of those numbers at the gate. And I thought, oh, my goodness.
Instead of sparking a riot, Deion's showmanship had the opposite effect and carried the night. Upon graduation in 1985, he left Fort Myers for Seminole country. Although he never played basketball for Florida State, he was a 3-sport star: baseball, football, and track.
It was wonderful stepping out there on a college field. I felt like the world was mine in college.
When he came out for baseball his freshman year, he didn't really understand what Florida State baseball was all about. The next year, this was 1987, and he led us to the College World Series.
Hit hard over the head of Benjamin in the left center field. Sanders with great speed.
After hitting .267 as a center fielder, Sanders gave up baseball after his sophomore season. Football became his total focus.
I can remember interviewing Coach Bowden lots of times where he would talk about the great ones are audacious. And Deion was audacious. And Bowden had never had anyone like him.
People would ask me, why did you put up with that? How could you put up with that? And I'd say, man, that was the easiest guy to coach we've ever had here.
He really allowed me to do a lot of things that he wouldn't normally allow a man to do, because he knew I was mature enough to handle not only the success of it, but the platform that I had.
Sanders was so impressive that his games passed into legend almost before they were over. He made 14 interceptions, was twice an All-American, and won the Jim Thorpe Award as the nation's best defensive back in 1988. But returning punts was his particular fetish.
Florida State goes into Death Valley, and Deion walked right up and down the sidelines and was pointing at players and coaches on the Clemson sidelines saying, this one's going back.
Deion Sanders from the 24. In the middle, twists his way, finds an alley. Now it's just the punter, he'll outrun it. It's going to be a touchdown, Florida State. Deion Sanders. An electrifying 76-yard run.
Deion was different. The players perceived him differently. They looked up to him, and he was a leader.
He was a player's dream. The players loved him to death, and so did the coaches.
But Sanders yearned for more than respect from teammates and coaches. To that end, a larger-than-life public persona was formed.
Running backs are making some money. Linebackers are making some money. Defensive backs ain't making too much money. That's okay. I got to do something about this. Prime time. At that stage, and right in my dormitory room, I started marketing prime time. He was not just a cornerback, he was also an entertainer.
He was very athletic, and he had great speed, and he understood, even in college, the nature of the beast. He understood the game, and therefore he could function as an island and get away with it.
In February of 1989, Sanders introduced himself to the NFL by taking the shortest, fastest route he knew, the speed tryout at the rookie combine.
Most players today that think they're going to be high draft choices won't even go work out for the pros at the combine. Deion had enough confidence in his talents and ability. He went out and teased them. He went out in sweats and ran the fastest time they've ever had run there.
Reporters were not allowed into the combine, but it was as if we were in the era of no TV when word just spread like wow. And all you heard was that Deion ran 4.2.
I knew I was going to run a 4.2. I really thought I ran a 4.1, and I was a little upset at the times because I felt like I could run a 4.2 for breakfast back then.
All you had to do is see Deion run. When Deion had the football, whether it was on a punt return or an interception, it looked, once he caught the ball, like everybody else was going in slow motion. He's just running past and waving high. Bye-bye. The 1989 draft will go down in history as one of the greatest in the NFL. You have Troy Aikman. Tony Mandarich was a can't-miss player. You had Barry Sanders going third. You had Derek Thomas going fourth. And then Deion Sanders going fifth.
Atlanta Falcons first-round choice, Deion Sanders, cornerback, Florida State.
I was kind of scared. I thought Detroit was going to take me. I would have asked for so much money that I had to put me on layaway.
I said the kind of stuff that people wanted to say, that people didn't have enough guts to say.
The most important thing in Deion's mind was to be the greatest athlete, entertainer that the world has ever seen.
I can remember the first day he came to the airport, and it was like, maybe a rock star coming through. And he was the type of guy who was ready to put on a show for him. And when he hit the field, that's exactly what he did.
Go on! Get in the end zone! Get in the end zone! 40, 35, Deion, 20, 15, 10, 5, Deion Sanders.
He focused more attention on the Falcons in a positive way than anybody could have ever imagined at the time for such a downtrodden franchise.
There was hope that at least when we go to a Falcons game, we may get beat, but we're going to have a good time.
You couldn't help but know about him. It didn't matter if you were in Atlanta or Alaska. I mean, you knew of Deion Sanders.
We had MC Hammer, Holyfield, and all those guys on the sideline cheering Atlanta on.
I would fly from California on a Saturday night to get to Atlanta Sunday morning just to watch Deion play.
When Sanders wasn't playing for the Falcons, he shifted his focus to baseball. Drafted by the Yankees in the 30th round, he played sparingly in 1989 and 90 before signing with the Braves.
Quit.
Deion, as a baseball player, is 180 degrees different than the football player. He's quiet, he's calm, he's enthusiastic, and he makes things happen.
Baseball was something that he had done all his life. He enjoyed it. It was almost a way to pass the time until football came.
I can remember sometimes we'd be at practice in Swanee, Georgia, and then Deion would practice with the Braves. But to make our practice, he would fly in a helicopter.
The chopper shuttle lasted until the baseball playoffs in October 1991, when he became purely primetime. He led the Falcons to their first playoff victory in 13 seasons.
His techniques were not good, everybody said, but he was always there. And you didn't throw in his zone. You didn't throw where number 21 was. You just didn't do it.
He doesn't do things by the book because he doesn't have to. Deion is so fast, he can have bad techniques and still cover the play. Deion is probably one of the only guys that can control half the football field just by his presence.
There's a saying that certainly made the rounds when Deion first came into the league and quarterbacks wouldn't even throw to his side of the field, that, water covers 3/4 of the globe. Deion covers the other quarter.
In 1992, Sanders continued to divide himself between the Falcons and Braves. Though a part-time player, he batted .304, stole 26 bases, and led the majors with 14 triples, while his celebrity spiraled through the roof.
I knew Deion Sanders, a naturally talented athlete, who could have played baseball very well for a long time if he wanted to, but never really appeared to want to.
Deion was really reaching to think that he could be a pro baseball player, a major league baseball player. As much as I admired him as a great athlete, I didn't think he should do it, didn't think he could do it.
In October of 1992, Deion's split-screen athletics took on a carnival aspect. After playing for the Braves in a playoff game in Pittsburgh on Saturday night, he was in the Falcons secondary when they lost to Miami the next afternoon. That night, he was back in Pittsburgh, sitting on the bench as the Braves lost.
I think some things are very unfair, like when I played 2 sports on the same day. It wasn't about a media circus. Somebody offered me a plane to make it back and forth. I said, okay. Just so happened that it came with strings. A camera would be there.
To play 2 sports in one day has got to be a dream, because you can't even think that's possible. And because we were in the playoffs, it was possible.
One who did not appreciate Deion's feat was baseball announcer Tim McCarver.
I think Deion's doing a rather self-centered thing, Tim.
Absolutely.
Going there tomorrow.
Talk about a guy playing both ends against the middle.
He was just up there popping his mouth off, and I remember my mama saying, baby, that man, whoever was doing the game was really talking about you bad. I said, okay, I take care.
Where's he at? Where's the car? Where's the car? Tom is right here. Right now. There you go. I got some real man. You know that? You are a real man, Deion. I'll say that.
The dumping of water on Tim McCarver was just silly. It was asinine. And, and I don't think Deion Sanders, as great an athlete as he was, would have wanted to tangle physically with Tim McCarver at that point.
Although Sanders hit .533 in the World Series, there was little love left in Atlanta. As the Falcons limped to a 6-10 record, he was increasingly seen as an athlete focused more on his own promotion than winning.
At Atlanta, when he had all that, primetime Deion, all that stuff, that it was just a bunch of baloney because they weren't winning.
Prime time, prime time, prime time. But Deion, you're down 38-0.
For him to be recognized as he wanted to be recognized, appreciated as he wanted to be appreciated, he had to get with somebody else.
In 1994, Deion and Atlanta parted company. In May, the Braves traded him to the Reds. Then, 4 months later, he signed with the 49ers.
Obviously, people think, oh, my goodness, how did we lose Deion Sanders? And everybody was feeling down. I stepped up and said, hey, listen, guys, football goes on.
When he left Atlanta, it was a case of, you won't pay me, I'll go get my money somewhere else. And San Francisco was a case of, I'm going to go play on a team of great stars, and I'm gonna be the greatest star.
truly a dream come true. All along, I've said that my main goal and my main concern is to win a Super Bowl. And I think the tradition that the San Francisco 49ers exemplify, they don't come second to anything.
The only reason why he went to the 49ers was to win. They were in a situation where Dallas had a leg up on him, and he felt that he could be the difference to get them over the hump.
Deion Sanders in the Atlanta locker room, he's the king. When he comes to the San Francisco locker room, he's just going to be another prince.
Truthfully, week in and week out, day in and day out, you really didn't see him as that much different than anybody else.
Now, Deion, when he was with the 49ers, subdued himself a lot, and he didn't go into nearly as much as he has with other teams. But he still was doing his little dance in the end zone, and a couple of times when he made interception returns when he was in the open, you know, he just kind of danced the last 20 yards, and Jerry didn't like that.
The relationship between Deion Sanders and Jerry Rice on the field was fantastic. These guys, it was a great experience for both of them to go at each other in practice every single day, because when you're at that level, there's not very many guys that you can practice against that are going to challenge you. Off the field, it got pretty heated at times.
It's like oil and water. And you could see that those two couldn't possibly get along.
I think it was just normal, that normal competitiveness with two magnificent athletes.
Does it sound better that Deion's got tension with Jerry Rice, or does it sound better that they get along? So he's not going to say to the media, no, I don't like Jerry, or yes, I do like Jerry. He's going to let the media itself create the monster.
Jerry was a bad boy, too. We used to mix it up a little bit. We had some good times in practice because I could honestly say he made me a better football player that year.
The 49er defensive backs, even the defensive coaches, were just in awe of the things he could do.
Pass is intercepted. They're not catching him down the sideline. Deion Sanders is dancing. He's looking backwards from about the 40-yard line. Oh, is he going to do a number on the crowd here?
With Sanders in their secondary, the 49ers won their first Super Bowl in 5 years.
The guy fit right in. He kind of adapted his whole personality to fit the 49ers. He was the missing piece of the puzzle.
He was very cognizant of what it took to be a part of the team. The persona, you'd think, oh, maybe he doesn't get it. But I promise you, he got the whole picture.
I just kind of threw out jokingly one time. I said, you know, really the next level is to go to Dallas and help them win the Super Bowl.
As the entertainer he was, he needed the focus. What better place to go than America's team?
Jerry Jones thought that if we're going to beat the 49ers, we got to get him away from there.
I remember just feeling at the time when he left that I wish we could have stayed together a couple more years, because I think we would have done some neat things.
Jones lured Sanders from San Francisco with a 7-year, $35 million contract that included a $13 million signing bonus.
Jerry Jones knew the way to Deion's heart, cash.
I'm looking forward to the first day I step foot on this football field, or to put on that star. I always wanted to be a star, didn't I? Now I get to be a star every day on my helmet, you know?
Jerry always thought he was a pretty big celebrity in Dallas as it was. When Deion came there, Deion took Jerry to the next level.
I don't care what it takes. You get me Deion. Hot dang, if I had 11 men like that, I could rule the world.
Sports today has morphed into entertainment, and Deion was one of the best at parlaying the show business aspect of it into his paycheck.
This guy allows you to blitz whenever you want to. He allows you to protect your other corner, and on top of that, he can catch a punt anywhere on the field at any time and take it the distance. Now, if that's a sham and that's a scheme or that's glitter and glamour, I'll take it every time.
With the Cowboys, Sanders captured his second championship in 2 years. He was at the top of his game, and he continued to let everybody know it.
You ready? Ready. Ready? Ready. I'm back. All right, let's get it rolling now.
While entertained, his flamboyance wasn't always a hit as he changed uniforms.
Deion is the poster boy for the strutting and the preening and the look at me image that a lot of professional athletes have portrayed.
I've criticized Deion Sanders over the years for his showboating, and Deion got me back once at the Super Bowl. You have to admit about Deion, he picks his spots. I happen to walk by, there's a massive crowd of people, and he lifts himself up and says, "Hey, hey, you're the guy who was ripping me on the sports reporters on ESPN. Hey, what do you think of me being here now?" And Deion, very cleverly, this is how he understands the media, he said, "Well, my mother didn't like it." Now, what are you going to say to that?
Deep down inside, there was this resentment. Many of his teammates hated his guts.
Deion didn't get along with everybody. You know, people had different views, religious, financially or whatever, of him. But they knew when it was time to line up on Sundays, they knew one guy was going to be there playing lights-out football.
There were a lot of guys that loved Deion Sanders, and I put myself right at the top of that list. You know, anybody that can help you win on game day, you love having on your team.
I'm telling you, Deion was a great teammate. When it came to playing his sport, baseball or football, I don't think you'll find too many guys that thought he was a bad teammate.
There are two sides to him. He's not the same person on the field as he is off the field.
His second year in Dallas, he went over to this local old folks home. He would do this every Tuesday. Every year, he would have something he would do with people that's less fortunate than him. But he never, ever wanted that in the media.
One pass a game may be thrown his way. He called me one day during the football season like, "You know what, man? I'm bored. You know, I'm gonna have to play offense. I might have to run back punts. And that's all I can do. That's the only time I can get my hands on the ball."
In 1996, Deion found a new way to make an impact. He played wide receiver as well as defensive back, catching 36 passes for the season.
That's the stubbornness of a great athlete. If he felt like he could help the team and he wanted to play over there, the owner was going to give him a chance.
Deion, with the ball in his hands on the open field, is the scariest guy in football. He makes your heart jump up in your throat.
After a season playing both ways on the gridiron, Deion directed his star power at baseball, hitting .273 and stealing 56 bases as a Red in 1997. But off the field, Sanders' life was in free fall. The death of his stepfather, his failed marriage, and his suicide attempt had led him into an emotional wilderness.
He just said he saw all these lights. He just said, "Lord, I'm ready." And he said he got on his knees and prayed the prayer of salvation, and he just developed a peace after that.
He's always believed in God. As he'll tell you, he's always read the Bible. But his life now is more serious. He's trying every day to crucify his flesh, so to speak, and to lift his spirit higher.
You know, when you have everything you want and you're still empty, looking for something, well, then that's when you need Christ in your life.
Oh my God, I'm in tears right now. The Lord had better plans for me.
You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it up on their bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house.
He admitted to his mistakes in his life, and he was wanting to share that with people and walk a different path.
Deion's the type of guy you can sit on the porch and talk about life with and get into depth and really feel like you got something out of the conversation, and it wasn't just a superficial deal wasting time.
I love where Deion is now, because he has a whole different attitude, a very different personality.
He's entirely different in flamboyance. He won't say the things that he used to say, and I don't think he believes them anymore.
I've never found peace. Now I have the peace of God. There ain't no peace like it. If anybody in here is a Christian, I think you understand, you can relate to me. If anybody's in here not, I see that you may think this is not real.
You know, him being a Christian, reporters in Dallas would, challenge him, questioning whether he was true to what he was telling everybody. Boy, he would get upset about that people would challenge his belief in God.
What happened is, if we have seen a legitimate evolution in who Deion is as a person, we have seen, if you will, a slightly kinder, gentler side and certainly a wiser side.
He seems to have matured a little, though, being Deion Sanders, it's got to be awfully hard to mature with what he's been surrounded with.
I remember there was a time where someone asked him about, after he found the Lord about him getting soft and about him not being able to put it down and not have that tenacity anymore. And his response was, the Lord didn't tell me not to be prime time.
Roll camera.
I don't need football or baseball to make money. I can make some money doing something. Look at the smile. I can make some money.
When we return to SportsCentury, Deion Sanders enters his final seasons in the sun. Has his flashiness overshadowed his greatness? In 1998, with his final Major League season behind him, Deion, at 31, began to show his age and the wear and tear of being primetime.
He started having some of these foot and leg injuries in baseball. And, you know, the thing about foot injuries and leg injuries and what have you, I mean, that is Deion Sanders. You take away Deion's legs, you've taken away a good portion of Deion.
Any other cornerback in his physical condition over the past couple of years would have been challenged repeatedly. Deion got by the last couple of years. His reputation more than anything else.
What is football but blows, you know? Blows to the head, blows to the body.
He was a two-sport guy, and I think that took away. I mean, after you play football, then you play baseball, then you go back to football. I think you got to save yourself and pace yourself some.
It's hard not to believe that it didn't tear him down physically. It's really shortened his football career and kept it from being really something special. He had a chance probably to go down as the greatest corner that's ever played.
The money was there for him in both sports. So it was intriguing to him, and he did a great job, but he knows now it can take a toll on you.
I can't imagine. It takes me 6 months to rest up when the season's over, and he was taking basically no time off. That has to show.
There was a lot of question about how well Deion could still cover. Was he still a capable man-on-man defender? And Deion said, I've been on that island longer than Gilligan, and I ain't looking to be rescued.
I want to introduce my wife first, Mrs. Pilar Sanders, my aunt from Washington, D.C., Annette Moss, my daughter DeAndre, my son Bucky, my son Shiloh, and my father, Darryl Green. Oh, I'm sorry. My role model, Darryl Green.
In June of 2000, Sanders signed a 7-year, $56 million deal to help resuscitate the Washington Redskins. As he stares into the brilliant twilight of an eventful, occasionally bizarre career, Neon Deion still sparks speculation.
What parent wouldn't want their child to be as talented as Deion Sanders? What parent would want their child to behave in the boorish, self-absorbed fashion that Deion Sanders behaves in?
People talk about Deion Sanders. Oh, I don't like Deion because he's a hot dog. No, Deion is not a hot dog. Deion is a great football player. Deion is a marketer. Now, you couple that marketing with a great product on the field and championships, and you can darn near sell anything to anybody.
I once joked with him that if you could, would you hire Alexander Ogilvy or some other marketing company to do your marketing? He said, no, no one's better than me. And he's right, no one's better than him, and he knows the shtick.
No matter how cynical you might be about Deion through Saturday, it's okay to say, well, wait a minute, let me step back and examine this for what it is. On Sunday, there was no such examination.
There's no question when a guy like Deion is on your side, you're feeling just a little bit cocky.
What Deion brought to the game was a sort of throwback quality to the 60-minute man concept that had been out of the NFL since the 50s or early 60s.
If he starts to give you that move, you see when his own dad, he saw that, he said, this is going to be a deep one, and Deion just broke it off.
Deion Sanders said he's going to be the next Iron Man. He's a half-assed two-way football player who couldn't tackle my wife, Emma.
His critics love to say, well, you can't say he's a great football player because he doesn't tackle. Well, you know what? We never saw people complain that Barry Sanders wasn't a great blocker.
A defensive back is meant to keep points off the board, to keep the other team from scoring. Deion Sanders turned the position into a weapon for his team.
And there's Sanders, has one man to beat, and he's gone.
Deion had speed that we've rarely seen on the field in any position. And the fact that he could do that at corner and make moves on the ball and lull you into thinking that this guy's open. Oh, God, not only is he not open, there it goes for a touchdown.
Over his 11 seasons with the Falcons, 49ers, and Cowboys, Sanders scored 21 touchdowns, including 9 on kick returns and 8 on interceptions.
I mean, he's a flashy guy, and people like to watch him come play, and the reason why he's done that is because he knows how to make big plays at the right times.
He's Jim Thorpe of the latter 20th century, in a lot of ways. You're playing the professional sports, the two sports that we all want to succeed at as kids.
He's the first guy to play in the Super Bowl and the World Series. That's pretty impressive.
Would he have ever been a great baseball player, a multiple-time All-Star? I don't know, but you know what? I've come to the point that I can appreciate everything that Deion Sanders did at whatever level he could achieve.
It upsets me when some people say, you would have been such a wonderful baseball player if you had stuck with it. Well, shoot, I'm a Hall of Fame football player. What you want? Both the Hall of Fame baseball player, too? I think one is good enough for me. I'm happy.
I think he'll be known as a great player, certainly, a Hall of Fame player, certainly. Will you identify Deion Sanders with a particular team? I don't think so.
So when he gets up there in Canton, Ohio, whenever that is, it'll just be a smile that he kind of knew this all along, and now he's sharing it with the rest of us.
Down in Atlanta, the story goes that one night in 1991, a few Braves fans performed the Florida State Tomahawk Chop in honor of their new baseball hero. The tribute was soon adopted as the rallying cry for a team that dominated the National League through the 90s. Meanwhile, Deion's trend-setting ways off the field were surpassing his on-field exploits. If the true measure of a superstar is to excel against all competition while mastering the media, then Deion Sanders occupies a privileged seat in the firmament, next to Reggie Jackson. For SportsCentury, I'm Chris Fowler.